All right. So my first question for you, Cody, is where does your story start?
Well, that's a good question. So, my professional story or my personal story? Where
Well,
do you
you
want to
get to
start?
decide that.
So, my story probably starts 45 years ago. How's that?
Perfect.
um, I was fortunate to have two parents that thought a lot to to spend a lot of time with me when I was a child and help raise me up. My dad, I grew up in a house where my dad is a hardworking blue collar worker. He was a mechanic and welder for many years. Um, Ended up going to school and becoming a airplane mechanic, and ended up parlaying his career into power plants that run off of turbine engines. And my mom worked for the newspaper. She went to school after I was, I guess, when I was about first or second grade. My mom started taking night school and got her journalism degree and went to work for many newspapers. Ended up as an editor with the Dallas Morning News for many years through my high school career, and then they moved, and I got out into the real world. So that's probably where my personal story and growth comes from, and then where I got a lot of the attributes that I have today. I learned in those years from my folks and my sister too. So uh, we talk about personal. Who am I, and where did my story start? Um, I went to college out of high school with big dreams and ambitions to be lots of things. One of them was to be this baseball player. I wanted to play baseball for the rest of my life. Thought that was my path, and I learned within I would say a couple of weeks that that was not going to be the case. Um, Pretty devastating, considering I had a, oh, I don't know, maybe an inflated sense of how great I was, I guess, and it was a true passion for me, and to not be able to pursue that, um, wouldn't say it sent me into a tailspin, but I wasn't prepared for anything else. Um, so I spent some time trying to figure out what I wanted to do, Danny, um, and in that path, I I've followed in the same steps as my dad. I picked up a shovel. I'd had a hard work ethic that I had learned from my father and my mom, and put it to work until I could figure out what else I wanted to do with my life. That makes sense.
Yeah, that makes perfect sense. And it's a really great kind of summary of the story I know about you from now. But that parlays into my second question, which is
Okay,
what led you to where you are now?
good question.
So where do you
There was
where did
some
you
pivotal
get to this?
moments there. Yeah, great question. So a few pivotal moments. Number one, I would say first trigger to do something different outside of blue collar, busting up concrete and fixing water lines and sewer lines was my wife and my first daughter being on the way. That was a pivotal moment for me in that I really enjoyed what I was doing for a living, but it certainly wasn't really paying the bills to the tune of, at that time I was carrying two full-time jobs. I worked full-time for the city of Plano, and I worked full-time for Academy Sporting Goods or Albertsons grocery store, depending on what year it was. So I would work 7 to 3:30 and then 4 to close. That was really how, and my wife was working full-time job plus her overtime. I mean, we were working really hard. So that was pivotal for me. Yeah, when she got pregnant with our oldest, something needed to change. And about that time, I had a guy that was very influential in my life, just a good friend who lived a couple of doors down. And I used to always tell him about a friend of ours that had this job, and he was crushing it. And I knew that I could do that job. And I used to tell, his name was Michael Armstrong. And I told Mikey all the time, I was like, man, I could do that job. I could do that job. And he just stopped me one day, and I may have shared this with you, but I'll share it with you again. He stopped me and he said, "Hey, listen, I don't care what the answer is. It doesn't matter to me. Just so you know, I honestly, I couldn't love you anymore either way. But I am perplexed and I'm a little confused, and I want to know what the answer is. So there's only two kinds of people in this world, only two." And I was like, "Okay, I follow." He's like, "It's either kind of person that talks about doing things, or you're kind of person that does things." And um, he said, "I just want to know which one you are, because you've always struck me as a doer, and I see you not doing it. So I'm just curious which one you are." And that that was the piece that I needed. I said, "I'm absolutely a doer. What are you talking about?" And so I went home and I just walked 2 doors down to my house, and I told my wife when I walked in, I was like, "I need a resume." She's like, "For what?" I was like, "I'm going to work with Vaughn. This is going to be great. I'm gonna go get this job. I just need a resume." She's like, "Great. Can we put Albertsons on there and the city of Plano?" Like, "You bet. Put them both on there, and I'm gonna go in here. I'm gonna get this job, and because I can do this, and I keep talking about it. I'm a doer. Let's do it." That was a pivotal moment for me that helped springboard my career into sales. I went in, I got the job. Um, I worked. It took me a lot longer to work during the days than most people, it seemed. Most people had 8-hour work days. I was running 12, 14, 15, depending on what day it was, trying to figure out what I was doing. I knew I could work and I knew I had the aptitude for the job, but I needed to learn it. So quickly moved into, got promoted to account executive, um, and did really well. And that was in the mortgage industry at the time. And then it took a crash, like end of '07. It was done. Like there was nothing there, and needed to find where the money went.
Mm-hmm.
And everything pointed to security. So I didn't know anything about security, just like I didn't know anything about the financial industry or the mortgage business. I knew that I had good support at home and my work ethic. And I knew somebody whose wife worked at a security company at McAfee.
Mm-hmm.
And she's like, "Oh, you'd be great. This is great. You're going to love it. They have sales here, and you'd be great at that. So let me get you an interview." And so she did. And, you know, I will tell you, I will back up. One thing I want to tell you, Danny, I sat down in the interview for that job at the mortgage company with a guy named Michael Kesting,
Mm-hmm.
and he was running sales at the time. And I walked through every reason why he should hire me and why I would be great for this role. And he looked at me and he said, "This sounds great, but I got one major problem." And I said, "Okay, what's that?" And he said, "The problem is you don't have any experience." And it caught me off guard a little bit, and it hurt me a little bit. I'm older than probably these kids coming in trying to get this job. I don't, he said, "But I don't know how you're ever going to get any if somebody doesn't give you a job. So I'm going to give you the job." And that was in the interview. He told me that. That 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 had a massive impact on me too as I've gone through my whole career. I remember what that felt like in that room. So I didn't want to brush over that point. Um, and so yeah, I go to security. Make a long story short, I get a role in network security. Um, don't know anything about security or networking. I never took any networking classes. So learned the business as an account executive, set some goals for myself. I'm a very goal-oriented person, um, and started chipping away at my goals. And over the course of several years, achieved the highest goal that I could achieve as a sales rep, and then was asked to move into leadership, to split out part of the team that I was on, and to run that team.
Now, I
Um,
got a question, kind of over something you mentioned. You mentioned that you love to set goals.
I do.
Achieve them. So, what do you think is the secret sauce? How do you keep on track, even when you're getting discouraged on getting to those goals and making them work, making them
Two
happen?
things. Two things. First of all, I'm a big believer in keeping promises, and I don't make very many of them. And so I will go in and try and see what my goal that I think I can achieve and what might be just outside of my grasp right now, but that has been accomplished by maybe somebody else. Doesn't matter the tenure, doesn't matter what it was, but I will make a promise to myself that I will give everything I've got to go get the goal. Okay, that's the first part. I make a promise to myself, and I don't break a promise to myself. You can't keep a promise to yourself. You can't keep it to anybody else. I live by that and I believe that. So I make a promise to myself. Okay, I'm all in. All right, that's the first thing. I'm all in. Then I visualize my goal. Whatever it is, I put it up. Like I'm looking at my goal board right now. It stays as the background on my computer. And over the years, it's changed. And I believe that having a vision board or a goal board, whatever you want to call it, is fundamental to achieving those goals. You have to see it every day because honestly, if you don't see it every day, it starts to disappear and it can almost seem unattainable from time to time because you're not looking at it every day. But everything I see on this board right now, I know is attainable. And I see it every day and I chip away at it. But my goal board isn't just with one thing. There's several things. I've got small, achievable goals that can be accomplished in a short amount of time. I've got mid-range goals, and I've got some long-term goals, some extremely long-term goals. I think I'm a hunter. I love to hunt,
Yeah.
um, and I've got a bighorn sheep on here, but that's probably a once-in-a-lifetime tag. That's something that's going to take a lot of time and a lot of work to get to, and they're not cheap. So just things like this. You asked how that's how. Um, but it starts with that promise that you make to yourself.
Yeah,
You got to
that's
promise that you're all in.
that's a quote
And
I had to write down. The you can't keep a promise to yourself, you can't keep it for anyone else.
agreed.
That is that's some incredible wisdom. So thank you for sharing that. I've got
To give some context to that, I
Mhm.
may have made 20 of those to myself in the last 20 years, maybe.
Goodness. So
I don't, it's not
it's a rare
something I take. Yes, of course. And it should be because that's a non negotiable. That's a promise. So
promises shouldn't be thrown around lightly.
agreed,
Okay.
especially to yourself.
Sec. Writing that down. All right. The next question I have for you, bit of a hard one. I want to preface this by saying I'll always offer a pass on this question. But I want to make it kind of clear what the definition of failure is when I say it. It's it's just a state. It's nothing positive or negative about it. I see it as nature's greatest teaching tool. So, in your career, what would you say is your proudest failure?
Um, in a leadership aspect or in an individual contributor aspect?
Really, it's I'm asking for which lesson did failure teach you the most from?
Hmm.
So, what's the most important lesson you've learned? Because everyone's going to have little slip ups, but I think the really important thing about those slip ups is it's not the actual slipping up, it's what you learn from it and how you use that knowledge to continue pressing on.
Well, there's a couple of things. So I think the first thing is understanding in a leadership capacity um, that this role that you're in um, does not function the same as the role that you came from. So when I first got the opportunity to lead a team, I believed that the reason that I got the role was because I was a top rep and that I could close business. And I went at my day to day of going to close everybody's business and
Mm,
attacking it. at that level. And what that did was two things. I failed because it's hard enough for one person to go at a very high level, but to try and multiply that effort by 8 or 10 and to put that into each piece is not sustainable. It also doesn't equip those people who are looking to you to help and to show and to coach how to do those things either. So I didn't do very well. First year out of the gate, we had a rolling pipeline and it was good and we achieved. The second year, not good. Not good at all because trying to play that super rep role wasn't what was required in that. That wasn't the role. It was more to be the teacher and to help and to show and to coach and to guide than to go in and be that super hero role, if you will. So for
Kind of
me,
learning.
that
Sorry for interrupting.
no, it's fine, and it doesn't mean that that's something that I learned from and then walked away and never had that challenge again.
Mhm.
But you asked what was that failure that I learned the most from. That's, I would say, in a leadership capacity, that's one. Um, I will also tell you um, one of the most impactful failures for me personally on an individual perspective was, and I saw it as a win, but the business saw it as a failure, was working an account and having the opportunity to take, well, I'll lay it out for you. Um, having an opportunity to close business. And in our line of work, it was a large transaction. We'll call it a $1 million deal, right? That's a big deal for us then. And there was an opportunity to take the deal down with a partner that we hadn't come with. They weren't our partner, but the customer said they wanted to do business with this partner and not ours. We had an integrity dilemma, and it was take the deal down and not live up to our commitment to the word that we have with this partner, or we could take the deal down, not live up to our word, or we could say, no, we're not going to do business with that partner. This is the partner we do business with, and you can buy our stuff through them. They gave us an ultimatum and said, no, we want to buy from these folks. So either do that or we're going to walk away from you and we're going to go buy your competitor. The business suffered from a bookings perspective. We didn't get the deal. They left. But we did honor our word to our partner that we did business with. And even though it was deemed a failure from a bookings perspective, to me, it solidified not just who I was as a person of high integrity, but it also solidified my company stance. Because even though it was seen as a failure on the bookings report, it also was seen that our company stood by our commitments to our partners. And in the long run, it actually solidified our partnership and we gained tenfold what we lost in that one deal, even though at that moment, having the integrity and the guts to stand up and just say, no, we're not going to do that, looked like a certain loss for us. Does that make sense?
Yeah, so I was going to ask if we could kind of put that lesson into words. Would you say that it taught you that integrity is an investment?
It taught me that um, doing the right thing is always the right thing to do. You should always do the right thing. I did not anticipate picking up tenfold business, and neither did the team. We did not anticipate picking up more business because of saying no to that deal. It was just a byproduct that we hadn't seen. But we still did the right thing. You should always do the right thing all the time. And if you do, you will find that it takes care of you more times than not.
Wonderful, wonderful. insight.
I don't know
Thank
if
you
that
for
makes sense, but
No, that makes perfect sense and answering these questions wonderfully. So thank you for that. Got two more for you.
sure,
Uh, where do you find value every day? It could be anywhere in your life. I know you love the morning walks.
I do.
You appreciate your daughter's volleyball games. Where's somewhere you're able to find value every day?
Um, Honestly, Danny, I try and find value everywhere I go and everything that I see. Every single interaction, every moment, I am consciously looking to see what value I can take or add to the equation. Um, I I love to go for the walks in the morning. I go with my wife every morning. We go for a walk. Sometimes it's earlier than I want to go. Sometimes it's a little later. Um, I love to listen to podcasts and listen to books while I drive, um, and try and pick up as much as I can. Um, I like, you know, I spend a lot of time in the Word. Um, I um, I am a Christian man, and I know that my guidance comes from that Scripture. So I spend time there, and I find a lot of value there too. And I find a lot of value with my family, all of it, top to bottom. And that's blood family and chosen family, the ones that we choose. Everybody in this organization is family. Your family. Yeah, that's just hard to narrow down to one place where I go find. But I'll tell you, the word is the guiding principle, and I try and bring value as much as I find it, if I can. Um, it's a mindset for me.
Oh, that's wonderful to hear. All right, and I'm going to ask you kind of the final closing question,
Yeah.
uh, and it's okay to take some time to think about this one.
Okay.
How do you want your story to end?
That's an emotional question, and I'm glad
And
you asked me.
yeah,
Um,
please feel free to always take a pass, but this is one of those questions where it's
no,
something that I think nobody thinks about, because especially in kind of the U.S., a lot of people are afraid to talk about death, even
you
though
know,
it's an
it
inevitability.
ends. It ends this way. I hope. Um, I hope it starts with that. That Cody was a strong, faithful man who loved his family very much and did everything he could to make those around him better. And that if anybody ever wondered what was on my mind, it was truly the happiness and the betterment of everybody around me, especially those that I love. I I think that that's how that ends for me. I hope. I work for it every day. I want that to be what is remembered. If you would, how does that end? Yeah.
No, thank you so much. That was a wonderful, wonderful answer to that question. I mean, that's I think one of those lessons that anyone can take a lot from. So thank you so
Yeah.
much for sharing your story, and it was a pleasure to get to formally interview you